The Rise of Africa, the continent, the diaspora, and BRICS explores the relationships that are affecting the global economy right now. This book explores the relationships of the African diaspora's influence on the African continent and why this is important in stabilizing relationships with an understanding of how BRICS impacts the future, good or bad. You can order your copy of The Rise of Africa today on Amazon.com.
What were you taught about marriage? Did it have you properly prepared for the journey or desperately frustrated looking for the nearest escape? I'm Shar, founder of Law for Love, the most special place in the legal system in Atlanta. And after navigating families through the court system for more than 13 years, we are now taking those lessons learned to serve and support families to build healthier, happier, more purposeful marriages. Join us live on YouTube at Law for Love ATL Monday nights for our family meetings. Yes, grown folk discussions.
Shalom, Salama, Fiemi, Shalom. Greetings to all my Israelite brothers and sisters from around the world. Whether you're the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the house of Israel, or you're a Gentile grafted into the house, under the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach, I welcome you this morning. This morning, we are really on the precipice of history. You know, last week I had the game changer, and we had discussed some things with that of how things were moving worldwide. And so understand, family, I know that there is some fear and trepidation. I get it. But here's the awesome thing about us as a people. And Gentiles, if you're listening, you may want to pipe in. The awesome thing about us as a people is that even though we may see all sorts of danger and calamity around us, you know what we do? We are strengthened by his word. And we are strengthened by our people. Do you know that that's actually a blessing? That's a blessing of Judah. I know a lot of people don't like to, you know, teach this in the church. But there are things that we have been endowed with as a people. And we understand how the Most High literally fights our battles. I won't be on very long today because I have to go and do some spiritual slaying in their system. I have a giant to slay this morning, and it's not me that's slaying it, it's the Most High. But I have to share this because you have to understand how meaningful and impactful we are as a people and what we have done. Our voice has shaped this world today. Let me share this scripture. This is Genesis 49. This is Genesis 49. These are the blessings that who, that Jacob, that Israel. Why is this? Because he's telling his sons what is going to happen. Let's read this in context because a lot of people miss this. Genesis 49, verse 1. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days, in that present day, in that current day, in the days to come, in the immediate day. No, in those last days. And it's emphasized because, with us, in our stiff necked ways, we have to have not once, not twice, but it's always three times. I know that's how it works for me when the Most High deals with me. Gather yourselves together and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. Now, I'm going to skip down to 49, verse 8. Understand that we are Yahudim. We have been scattered throughout the world with our slavery because of our disobedience. Because why? Because we're the scepter. Let's read Genesis 49 and 8, verse 8. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He couched as a lion and as an old lion. Who shall rouse him up? We've been roused up because we're in the last day. Because why? Because we have been crouched. We have been down. We have been literally a prey unto ourselves. And now we're beginning to get roused. We're beginning to understand. We're beginning to come up out of this captivity. Why? Genesis 49 and 10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. What? The scepter shall not depart from Judah. We have always had the authority with our mouths, with our voice, nor a lawgiver from between his feet. We have always interpreted the law. This is why when we talk about justice and things being justice, because justice is righteousness. Because when you deal justly, you're dealing righteously. Come on now. Until Shiloh come. And here we go. And unto him shall the gathering of the people be. So you understand literally, there are gatherings. This is a prophetic scripture. Binding his foal unto the vine and his ass's colt unto the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine and his clothes in the blood of the grapes. Why? It's a trampling. We have the authority to trample amongst the nations and to cut them off. His eyes shall be red with wine and his teeth white with milk. We're already victorious in this system. Nothing is going to stop us but us. This is why you have the Diddies. This is why you have the R. Kellys or whatever gatekeeper that they have empowered and entrusted. Because why? Well, I can't believe them. I can't do this. I can't do that. This has happened. This is why things happen. All of that good stuff. I'm going to tell you why. Because their number one job was to not be roused up. Because our voice creates not just a gathering of our people, but of the nations. Because the nations get vexed, the nations get crazy, the nations know we're waking up. And so, what are the nations doing? They're scurrying. They're scurrying like rats. They're doing la cucaracha. And now you're starting to see that as we are coming together, we're rising up, we're moving up. See, there's a rising up that the world thinks, and there's a rising up as the Most High says. In the time that we have had Quest to Unite Africa since the April before last, April of 2023, we have been coming together as a people with our brothers and sisters on the continent. And in doing so, we have been able to establish these relationships that has been taken away from us. Because the whole idea of the enemy was to continue to destabilize relationships, create tension, and other measures because they've never wanted to see us gather as one. Because why? We'll get to that later. I'll show you. But in doing so, understand we have Brother Mike on out there in Tanzania. And right now, Brother Mike came to us with an idea about a month and a half ago. And he said, "You know what? This is what we need to establish. This is what they're craving." And we look at things and we will say, well, that should just be common knowledge. Anybody should, interpret that or think like that or do like that. But we haven't really understood that what we have learned and what we have been taught to us and what we have established basically, as generally accepted principles, is not so general. See, when I was out in Tanzania twice last year, there were things that I was looking at in horror and bewilderment. And for the Tanzanians, it's like, oh, this is just regular life. No big deal. And Mike, when he's on out there, Mike lives in a village. Let me tell you how humble Mike is, because a lot of folks don't truly understand this. Mike has not been with actual or consistent water for the last 3 months. Mike has to take jugs of water and he has to carry them on his shoulders due to the lack of consistency of actually having water. Yeah, that's what happens. And it was on Mike's spirit. He said, look, they got to learn. They got to learn. But it's not going to be taught at the national level of sorts. That is only going to be taught. At the local level. And so as my brother Mike was enduring these struggles, the Most High was literally putting it on his heart. Let me tell you this. I don't know if y'all know when I tell you about QQA and Mike's African Logistical Agency, for real, he has so many skills and so many trades, and he has licenses that it's like, wow, this man has a CDL, he has an electrician's license, he's got a beautician's license. I mean, he has it all. And he understands how mechanisms move. And so when we were talking about this with some agricultural projects, and it came to mind. It's like, you know what? We need to be able to train. We need to be able to teach, and then teach them how to use the soil. Teach them how to literally just collect the trash and the garbage, and sprinkle lye to reconstitute. And in doing so, you're not just growing out of garbage. Because, if you grow something in garbage, it'll grow. I mean, think about it. We have the stories of why people don't eat the peaches there in Natchez, Mississippi, because of how the peaches have a darker tint, because it's sucking up the melanin from all of our brothers and sisters that had died. And those are the Union soldiers. So hey, this is a well historical fact, well known historical fact. So you have to reconstitute the soil. And Mike noticed they really don't have that understanding because here's the thing, training and being educated, it's a different spectrum, it's a different scale. So, what Mike has done, Mike has done research of how we can support the local Tanzanian population through a QQA vocational training center. Here's what the website looks like. We're asking for an initial donation of $10,000. That includes 2 buildings, an area to where they can learn how to plant, to be able to understand horticultural practices for that area, and to learn how to do food preservation techniques. And this is going to go into phases because part of that phase, the initial one, is being able to reclaim and restore land. So they're going to have to learn from literally bottom to top. The funny thing is, when we first started this, we were thinking about training when it came to laptops and getting desk and get them into an environment so they can learn clerical skills and all sorts of other administrative skills that would get them ready for 21st century. But that's going to come along. But the foundation is they have to have the food so they can be healthy. And when you're healthy, you're able to learn. And listen, I'm guilty of it myself. I think too lofty, and I don't really drill down to the core. Wait a second. Before we get there, we got to go here. So Mike will be sharing pictures and photos as we get this campaign launched. We need to have a quick turnaround on this. We're asking that by October 1st, we can get and reach our goal because we have to get these classes started. We got to get things moving because it has been long overdue. Because I'm going to tell you, each and every day, the folks in his village are asking about these training opportunities. And see, the way that that goes is when you train the village, guess what? You train the region. And then when you train the region, you train a nation. So when a nation knows how to eat properly because it's eating its resources, and guess what? It's keeping its resources and it's trading its resources and it's creating the mechanisms. See, what you don't understand is when you are dealing with Tanzania, you're not dealing with Tanzania. You're actually dealing with India, China, Russia, the Arabs. Everyone else but Tanzanians. And so they do not control their resources. And if you don't control your resources, guess what? You don't control your monetary system. So everything that they do is for a benefit of others instead of Tanzanians. That's how that goes. So for us to do something different to help them because it gets scaled up, it's not just helping the village, it's helping a region, which will in turn help a nation. This is how we do things. This is how we move things. This is how we export things. That's how nations do make money. They export. So when you're learning the techniques that is exporting for the fairness of value, what you see over in the Sahel right now, then guess what? You begin to be empowered when you are in control of your resources. But that starts with training. See, economic development, critical infrastructure, it all starts with training. Training for resource management. And resources, the number one resource to manage is the food. Why is that? Why now? Why is that so important? That doesn't have anything to do with me, too bad on the Africans and, yada, yada. And I know a lot of our people say that. I get it. I was like that up until about maybe 2, 3 years ago. I get it. But here are some things that a lot of our people don't get. I think I put the link in the chat. I'll put the link in the chat for that donation. So let me go ahead and do that. If I hadn't already, I think I maybe did. Yep, here it is. If you'd like to give, we have that in the chat. Again, we do appreciate your support for Quest to Unite Africa. We are wholly supported by your donations. And this helps to not just put missions into place, but it builds the relationships. And I'm going to tell you why that relationship is so important because you're going to get this. You're going to see this right here. Get over to the screen. UN General Assembly 2024. War on Gaza dominates speeches on day one. So you got the pharaoh or the mummy. It's already zombie time, I guess. This is from Shahriyar Mirza, and this is as of yesterday, last night, September 24th. United Nations Security General Antonio Guterres kicked off the 79th United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday at UN headquarters in New York City with the warning about how a decaying rules based order has handed several countries a get out of jail free card, referring to Gaza, Sudan, and Ukraine. They can trample international law. They can violate the United Nations Charter. Said during the general debate at the UN, they can invade another country, lay waste to whole societies, or utterly disregard the welfare of their own people. Nothing will happen. The level of impunity in the world is politically indefensible and morally intolerable. All right, so that's from Gutierrez. And then you have Biden, and I'm not too concerned about that. You already know what that's going to look like. But here is what you have with Erdogan. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan started his speech by expressing his pleasure in seeing Palestine in its rightful place among member states, adding that he hoped it was a final step towards full membership. Referring to the failure to stop Israel's assault on Gaza, Erdogan said the UN has failed to fulfill its founding mission and has gradually become a dysfunctional structure. A dysfunctional structure. See, what I have in my thumbnail for this presentation for today is first speeches, then declarations. First speeches, then declarations. See, family, what you have right here is are the nations. They're riling up and they're going against the system. See, understand when you see all the kinetic actions, the missiles, the things blowing up, all this stuff that's happening, right? As a result of the political consequences that shape what you're seeing right now. Here's the thing, people just don't fight to fight. There's political wrangling that goes on, and then you go into a militaristic action. And I had broken that down in the art of diplomacy with 6 principles. I will share that in the next upcoming art of diplomacy that will be taking place in Tampa. I will be giving dates and times. So book your calendar, especially if you're in the Tampa area or South Florida area, about an hour from Orlando, and 2.5 or 3.5 hours from Miami, depending on traffic, of course. But it says the UN has failed to fulfill its founding mission and has gradually become a dysfunctional structure. Because why? Because the UN wasn't about the nations. It was about a nation to where all nations had to be subservient because that nation, that come on, family. Let me show you this. That nation that had Zion, that nation that had Jerusalem, that nation that had Judah. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. And you had Zion. Come on, family. Understand why they don't like to trace our history back. Because it goes, oh, so much further. Because it's not just about, oh, you're Judah. Yeah, you're Israel. Nah, they understand tabernacles of David. They understand scripture about us. They understand Zion about us, about the people. They understand who we are and the power that we have in our voice. And this is why they use and abuse our power. That's why we read Jeremiah 50 and 20. They'll be looking for guilt in Judah. Nope, none shall be found. Just paraphrasing. Because literally, they've abused the power that they stole. And because they usurped a power that wasn't theirs, now the world is in chaos. The world is in shambles. And when you are living in chaos and in shambles, guess what? You can have all of the illustrious speeches that a statesman or woman can provide, all the heads of states can give and offer. But at the end of the day, if you had to live in garbage at someone else's expense, you're going to begin to rise up and ask, why do I live in garbage at their expense? Or, at their luxury? They're living at my expense. They're living lavishly, right? Isn't that what it says in Joel chapter 3? Look, these nations, they've been drunk. It says that in Obadiah. Nah, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. Yeah, I gotta do something else. I gotta look at something else. I gotta try to find an alternative. And that is what they're actively doing. Understand, they weren't this emboldened last year. And I was like, they're gonna get emboldened as they begin to move towards BRICS. Because when you're moving towards another alternative, you have another choice. You're meaning that I can defy the dollar? Well, you all are doing it. It's not looking too bad. As a matter of fact, wow, Russia, your economy is growing since you've been off the dollar. How did you do that? How are you still making money? And they said the dollar's doing this and the dollar's doing that. As a matter of fact, because they've done that to you, now the dollar's looking even worse. How's your economy able to grow? Even when you're in full on war. And this was brought on up. Shout out to Geopolitical Trends, Dr. O, because he brought out something that I had to reflect on. See, understand everything that's happening right now in the Middle East, in Ukraine, all these things that were happening are happening. It started a while ago. I'm just saying for this iteration. It started a while ago. And I distinctly remember these these moments. These are moments in times, moments in life where it's like, yeah, I remember that. I remember that because it was vividly captured when I was looking at CNN and I was talking to the Ukrainian senior national representative that was assigned to CENTCOM. And he was staring and he was looking at the TV and he was seeing everything going on. He saw the folks fighting at the steps of the Parliament building and he was looking at the revolution taking place. And he was saying, yeah, this is real bad. And you saw the concern on his face because at that time, it was a question of, there's a lot of questions. Are they going to stay? Are they going to go? Are they going to seek political asylum? Everything was literally just, it was an issue. Understand that at that moment of time, things actually didn't get better. It was just the fact that there was more of a proxy being fought in those regions because you had ethnic Russians there in eastern Ukraine. And you had fighting that was still going on. You had fighting that was still taking place because you still had a lot of quote unquote ethnic cleansing. And Russia was seeing that and was trying to intercede on behalf of the ethnic Russians. You don't hear this, they're not going to tell you that. So if you like to donate to this channel, please do because they may shut it down. But I also knew about the ASOF brigade. I already knew that they had a really right wing government. I already knew that I wasn't supposed to engage with them, in their office without somebody there with me. I already knew about that. But it wasn't made to light because those were, sensitive things. And now it's been made to light. I can discuss it. They tried their best to scrub the internet of it, but those pesky, Luftwaffe and all the other, Nazi paraphernalia, keep springing on up. Sort of like, sort of like Mark Robinson's cachet from 10, 15 years ago. Oh, that pesky Ashley Madison. Why did they keep my information? Out of all the information they scrubbed, yeah, they kept the brother's information. Oh, yes, they did. Oh, they kept that man. They scrubbed his stuff down. They kept the post, all that stuff. Now we're gonna have some leverage on this Negro. I told you. You think that Diddy was just doing things on his own? No. They literally utilized the playbook. That's why our man's on self-deletion watch because you know he's about to expose everything. He said, he said my kill switch, that kill switch, I'm gonna release everything. The last 6 months, I guarantee you, he was probably making TikToks. If I go down with some accident, man, you put everything on TikTok, Telegram, Twitch, whatever you can find. I'm not the criminal mastermind. The criminal mastermind is beep, 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 beep. I can only go so far in those jokes, lest I become a target. Yeah, and I gotta be trying to do some hurricane planning today, and I don't want to be looking over my shoulder and why is this car following me? Because I always feel like an astronaut's watching me. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Hurricane planning. That's what I do. And don't you wish me too? Oh, you saw that? You got it? Ah, you got it. See how I beat the algorithm? You see that? Yeah. I'll be real slick with mine. I'll be real slick with it. I don't know, man. There's always, when they say there's a price for freedom, man, what I say, Gart, what I say. You know what I said. What I say. When you wish upon a star, makes no ditty difference who you are. When you sign that NDA, you're behind. Let me stop. Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. Look, they'll be looking for fault. They'll be looking for the sins of Judah. I'm just saying. Diddy said he's gonna dig up every single skeleton he has in that closet. Man, I'm just wondering if I'm just speculating here, but do you think he caused the accident with Aaliyah? I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering. He's like, yeah, I had to get Aaliyah. That was a vendetta between, R. Kelly and myself. Was it really Ronald Isley as Mr. Biggs, or was it actually P. Diddy? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Mm. The jury is out on that one, and the jury may never even be able to be subpoenaed. I'm just saying. I'm sorry, family. I am on one this morning. I am sorry. I apologize. But all that to say is, yeah, left eye too. Yep. Yeah, left eye. Them roads in Panama can be really, really dangerous. Keep rejecting my white parties. I'm gonna have you wearing white robes in glory. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. You You can either put on this earthly white party, or you can trade out for them white robes and glory. I like you and I want you. No, 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 no. I like you and I want you. Oh, boy, oh boy. Look, if we don't laugh, we're going to start crying. With all the craziness that's going on around the world, we are going to start crying with all the craziness. Let me hurry on up here. We got a few minutes. Let me hurry on up here. All right. So as I was horribly tangented off in my ignorance that I unwittingly and forced you all to indulge in. My bad. I had said this yesterday that you have Erdogan that's getting ready to go into Turkey. I had mentioned that yesterday. I said there's some reasons um, uh, to that because of Erdogan's stance of how he wants to be an Islamic leader, even more than likely, the Ottoman Empire falling. Because here's the thing, the empire fell, and then, honestly, that allowed for um, what you saw in Palestine. I mean, that's really what it is. So, and indirectly, the fall of the Ottoman Empire, which Turkey came from out of, created this situation. So there's one historical narrative to that. The other historical narrative has been um, with Syria, and I was getting ready to, and I had this conversation yesterday with some folks, and I said, I remember that we would laugh because that was another one where I was at, and I was on. I worked in the JOC. It was the JOC. It's called the JOC, the Joint Operations Center. And at that time, I wasn't on active duty. I would just come off of active duty, and I wasn't really feeling active, going on because I was enjoying a cushy life as a contractor, but I still wanted to maintain my reserve status. So listen. I'm cold with it. I used to do my 8 hours for my drills, get my twofers, and then I did my 8 hours in contracting. I used to have those days, 16-hour days. And I remember that this was a day, it was literally 9 years ago because it was September 22nd. I still remember that day. It was 9 years ago. You had Putin visiting Bashar al Assad. He is the quote unquote president of Turkey, or excuse me, Syria. See, during that time, you had the destabilization through the Arab awakening with Facebook and all these other platforms, and that's how folks were coordinating. And then they tried to shut down Facebook, and it was too late. Then you had all these militant groups. You had the Shia militia groups supporting um, Bashar al-Assad, which would be Iraqi and Syrian fighters and some even Iranian fighters. supporting Bashar al-Assad. And then you would have, they called them freedom fighters, but they were basically Western elements. The whole McCain debacle where, equipment went and then, it went into the hands of ISIS, all that stuff. And so what ended up happening was Syria was literally on the verge of collapse. And understand, I think they had like Maronite Christians. I think that's what it was. It was like their Syrian dialect, almost like a Greek Orthodox for Christianity. And a lot of the high profile folks within the Syrian government were actually Christians, believe it or not. And I always thought that was odd. I'm like, why do we want to topple them? And it's like, they're Christians, right? I mean, aren't they believers in, Christ at that time? I wasn't really awakened at that time. That always like threw me through it kind of had me floored. But when they were on the verge of collapse, Bashar al-Assad reached on out to Putin. Putin literally came within like a week. It was crazy. He came within a week. And then when he came, like everybody where I was working at was like on the news, just seeing it happen. And then we saw Putin. Putin's I think only like 5'6" or 5'7". He's a short stature, but Bashar al-Assad is like 6'5", 6'6". So it was like Danny DeVito. We called it the twins moment. We were joking about that twins. Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is like hugging up on Danny DeVito. Thank you. And that's what that picture was. Bashar al-Assad was very like kissing Putin on the cheeks. No, those are real. That's real footage. Kissing his hand, kissing his cheeks, kissing his shoulders. It was the ultimate expression of love, because that was his life. And right after Putin landed, it was literally like, we remember this. It was 48 hours later, and we were seeing in real time the airplanes being tracked going down into Syria at I think like a place is north of Damascus. They landed, and we were tracking things and seeing how things are going, and it was like, oh snap! You could see how they had debarked, and you know they were staging. And one of the folks that I work with has said, "Yeah, we're about to get pushed out." And then you had the interactions with the Russians and the U.S., and it wasn't good. Nobody like lost any lives, but um, those Russians, man, they came through, and the U.S. wanted no parts of them. And I always had the wonder. I was always asking myself, it's like, were they gonna engage with them now, or sometime in the future? And then shortly thereafter, that's when I had my awakening. But I say all that because understand that Lebanon, just yesterday, Nasrallah, who is the leader of Lebanon, he called out. He called out to Iran, and he said, "We need you," because they're getting stomped too. Make no mistake about it, they're not just fighting. the Eastern Mediterranean nation, they're fighting the United States too. So that literally happened within the period of 24 months that Nasrallah, or excuse me, 24 hours that Nasrallah had called out to Iran. Now, Iran is trying to, do this and do that. No, they're already there. Matter of fact, they're already there. I read an article. I don't know if I shared it. I thought I shared it. But the article had stated that there are 40,000 fighters there in Golan Heights that consisted of Iraqi, Syrian, and Yemen fighters. And they're only going to pile in more and more and more. It's going to get crazier and crazier and crazier. Because understand, you already had then just within the day, the UK announced that it was sending troops. And those troops are going to Cyprus. So now Cyprus is a target. And now you have Turkey saying, look, we are going to, get this thing together. Because if Iran jumps, Turkey's going to jump. And Iran will be forced to jump in because when they go into Lebanon, they're also going to go into Syria. And within literally all this stuff was happening within the last 24 hours, you had two missiles from that Eastern Mediterranean nation target Russia's naval base in Tarsus, Syria. Why is that? Because they don't want them to offload weapons. Because understand, more than likely, what's going through that Bosphorus, what's going through the Mediterranean Sea is shipments of more than likely some hypersonics. I'm going to say more than likely. So it's only going to exasperate the conditions. Yes, family, when I said, man, the verge of World War III. And understand nobody's backing down. You want to know why no one's backing down? Because they're not caring about sanctions. Have you heard anything about sanctions in any of this? I'm wondering, did anybody hear about sanctions? And you won't, because here's simply the thing, it's not working. It's not working. And it actually created and backfired. It created a whiplash effect of sorts. You don't hear anything about, well, we need to have a diplomatic solution. And no, none of that. They're not stopping. I mean, are we surprised if you've been following this channel and Teos and others? Are we surprised? No, not at all. Are we concerned? Yeah, a little. But are we surprised? No, not really. And really, we're not concerned because really, this is the most high moving. We knew that this was going to happen. We just didn't understand that it would happen on such a spectacular display. that all these nations are being drawn into it because they attack the port of Tarshish, which is Russia's naval base. Russia's going to be sending troops. They don't just have to get there via ship. They can just fly, and then they'll fly right over Turkey's airspace, and Turkey will say, "There you go." See, these are all of the geopolitical situations that they're not going to try to tell you. It's complicated. I even miss things sometimes, but then I remember I'm like, yep, because they had this, this, and this, and this. And Russia's been there for over 9 years. So guess what? That base is pretty built up. And remember, you heard no problems from Syria. And now I think I heard somebody, very pro Western. Well, it could destabilize Syria and Syria could, fall. And I'm like, man, they just love opportunities. Man, Syria ain't going nowhere. Matter of fact, you haven't even heard anything from Syria. Matter of fact, Syria actually became cool to the West. Yes, they did. Well, we couldn't get rid of you, Bashar al Assad. So, you know what? We have a truce for now. I'm sure all Bashar al Assad was doing was just stockpiling. He was on the phone with Putin every day. Now, you know these fools are lying, and they going to come back. He was like, nah, I'm not going to drink that Jim Jones Kool-Aid. Nah, you got me twisted. Nah, he was looking at them with a side eye like, nah, no, no. Well, can we just pump your oil and everything else because understand what actually ended up happening was, and this is why it was so important. What ended up happening was when Russia landed in Syria. Remember, all the ISIS fighters up and left Syria, and then they went to Mosul. They beat tracks out of there. And the US was undecided, do we really do something? We do this. And someone was like, oh, we actually have to do something about it because if we don't, then people start questioning things. So eventually, ISIS diminished. They didn't go away, they just diminished. And, all this to say, why is this so important right now? Because the rest of the world is no longer falling for the narrative that it had been basically told to fall for these last couple decades. See, when you see these articles here, and this was the big one. To me, this is the biggest one. I'm going to wrap this on up. King Abdullah II. This is from the Middle East .net. I put that chat in here, or put that in the chat earlier. What began as a passionate address at the UN headquarters by King Abdullah of Jordan quickly transformed into a chilling indictment. It often feels that there was not a moment when our world was not in turmoil. The Jordanian monarch said, spotlighting the dire juncture at which the United Nations finds itself annually. And yet I cannot recall a time of greater peril than this. Here we go. I'm going to skip down to this paragraph. UN aid trucks sit motionless just miles away from starving Palestinians. Humanitarian workers who proudly wear the emblem of this institution are disparaged and targeted, and rulings of the UN's International Court of Justice are defied, its opinions disregarded. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have Sister Shar on tomorrow. I'm going to try and get Sister Shar on tomorrow about this. Shout out to our Q2A volunteers for the dinner, and we were talking about this. We literally sat and we talked about this Saturday night. And in that discussion, it was, well, nobody cares about a ruling. I'm sorry. You just had King Abdullah the second of Jordan himself, Jordan, the literal vassal state of the West, going against its masters. Oh my goodness. Can somebody say it's WAR time? Give me a W, give me an A, give me an R. Because if you thought that wasn't was something, oh, here it is. Oh my, here it is. Right here. Impunity gathers force left unchecked, it gains momentum. He said, look, if they're threatened, I'm threatened next. Nah, homie, I see where this is going and I don't like it. It was all cool when it was done to them, but now I can see that it can be done to me. Oh my goodness. Now here it is. The legislative act. Moral duty of this international community. It is the moral duty of this international community. Let me be very clear. This is from King Abdullah II. That will never happen. They have parentheses. Jordan will never accept the forced displacement of Palestinians. That is a war crime. Oh my goodness. Wait, didn't we pay this dude so he can shut up? Aren't you getting a bag for you to shut up? What are you doing? First speeches, then declarations. I'm just saying. I'm telling you, family, this is the most pivotal time in history. The nations are gathering. The nations are gathering. And I need to close this on up. So understand this is why when the Most High does things, he does things in it. They're in order. It's in decency. It's not in confusion. And he gives us that understanding way out in advance. We may not know what it means. We may not know what's happening. But understand when we put our trust in him, guess what? He leads us and guides us into what? Into all truth. Now, on the way, we're going to get beat up. We're going to go through some trials and testimonies. Because why? Because we're declaring something. Because why? Because we're literally grabbing the scepter that belongs to us. and that's our mouths. And we're declaring things for ourselves. See, once you declare things for yourselves, guess what? Just like Jacoba had said yesterday, they don't want to be under this rulership. So they then went and started a war because of us. Literally. We saw that in 2021, in 2022. It happened. And we saw that. Everything literally could have been copacetic, but they literally went out and they created a war because we had been waking up. It a lot of the things it just made no sense. But it made sense to the powers that be. It made sense to the rulers of this world. And now understand this is Psalms 83. These nations that have been confederate, they're now turning on themselves. And it's being done at the highest, their highest temples, for lack of better words, for the whole world to see. Not for some to see, for the whole world to see. I don't know what else to tell you. I can't say it any better. Matter of fact, I'm not trying to say anything because you want to know why? Let them say it. We already knew it was coming here. No one here should be surprised at all. We already knew this was coming. We already knew this day was happening. But here's something that's happening. We are working with our brothers and sisters on the continent. We're coming together as a people. And these two sticks are beginning to not just wake up, but beginning to build. I have a different mindset about this because all I can say is hallelujah and thank you, Father. Yahuwah is fighting for his people, and we are covered under the blood of his son, Yahushua HaMashiach, that we can declare victory in this day. And I have to get off because I have a personal matter to get to. That's a legal giant, but I'm declaring victory, just as our forefather David had done. We already had the victory because we're covered under the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach. Don't get it twisted. Our intercession to our Father comes from him. So, family, thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support. Again, if you'd like to donate to this channel, I have it in the description for the Zelle or PayPal. Tomorrow, my schedule should be clear in the morning, so we'll dive into this because there's going to be more things going on tomorrow or today that we'll have to discuss tomorrow. Hallelujah. So with that said, family, shalom, salama, siyemi, shalom, peace and blessings, Yasharel.